Hey guys, my name is Matea, and in this video I'm going to talk about the three most important things on your website for SEO. So there's three main things that Google looks at, and aside from those, keep in mind, yes, it looks at everything else, looks at your whole website, everything. So everything is important, but these are the three pillars, as it were, which really make a big difference to the SEO and where your website's going to rank. So number one is the H1 headline. The H1 headline is extremely important because that's basically the text that Google considers the most important on the whole page. It's the highest priority, and Google looks at what that says and what keywords are in it to figure out what the page is really about and then ranks it accordingly. So you need to make sure that the H1 headline contains all the keywords that you want to rank for on that page and says what you need to say. Now, the other thing with the H1 headline is you need to remember that people are actually reading it. So it also needs to be readable and actually say something useful so that people want to keep reading the page. So it's a bit of a balancing act. You need to make sure that you have the keywords, but that it's actually doing a good job at convincing people to read the rest. So keep that in mind when you're writing them. You don't want it to sound like robotic keyword stuffing, because Google also knows that as well. Their algorithm is actually very, very smart, and it knows if you're just stuffing keywords in there, it's not going to work just like that. So keep that in mind when writing the H1 headline, but pay really good attention to what you're doing there because they are crucial. Number two is the URL of the page. So people used to just stuff a whole bunch of keywords in the URL to try and make it relevant for all of them, but Google put a stop to that basically, and now it actually prefers a shorter URL. So yes, while it contains less keywords, a shorter URL, one, looks better and cleaner, and it looks better on the Google search results as well, and Google prefers that you have a shorter URL. There have been people who have compared the two to try and see it, and it has been concluded that shorter URLs tend to work better for SEO despite the fact they have less keywords. So basically, pick the keyword that you think is the most important and just use that for the URL. So for example, if we're talking about, let's say, a lawyer who's doing conveyancing, you would just want to make the URL for the conveyancing page /conveyancing. You don't want to put like /conveyancing lawyer in Auckland. You could get away with that, but it's bordering on too long. You're better off just using conveyancing because basically it's not going to do you any favors. Let's just put it that way. And number three is the meta title, also known as the page title. This is the headline that shows up in the tab when you open the website, and it's also the headline that shows up on Google. So if you actually do a Google search, you'll see the big bold text at the top of each search result. That's the meta title. Now with this title, you've only got approximately 60 characters. Sometimes it's 63, sometimes it's less, but it's around 60. And you need to make sure that it all fits within that 60 characters. If you go too long, you'll end up with the ellipses and it'll be cut off, and basically that's now not relevant. So you need to keep it under that character limit, but you also want to use the same keywords. Now, a little trick, if for example, you're trying to rank for two keywords that are very, very similar, for example, let's say property lawyer and property attorney, what you can do is you can put property lawyer in the H1 headline and put property attorneys in the page title, for example. Now, obviously, you want to use up that whole 60 characters, so you'd add more words to that. And again, it needs to look real and readable. Don't just stuff a whole bunch of keywords in there. However, keep that in mind about using the alternating keywords, because you can use that to make it relevant for both of the keywords because they're both in the same topic. So that's a little trick you can use there. Those three things are going to make the big difference to your website. If you optimize those three things on every single page of your website, including the homepage and everything, you're going to have a much, much easier time ranking the website. If you don't optimize these three things, it's going to be next to impossible. We may as well just say impossible. It's going to be extremely difficult to get your website to rank. So that is why I say they're basically the three pillars of SEO. So I hope that was helpful. Catch you guys next time.